The waiter had just poured the second glass of wine when she caught him glancing at the woman 2 tables over. He recovered quickly, smile flicking back toward her like nothing happened, but the moment had already pressed itself into the evening. She didn't flinch. She just sipped her drink, nodded politely at the end of his story, and tucked that glance away. She hadn't come expecting magic, but she had shown up fully. Her brown skin caught the light like copper under fire. Her curls were soft and intentional, framed perfectly around her high cheekbones. Her dress was a muted olive that hugged her body without asking for attention. She had walked into that room with her head high and her hope intact. He asked the usual questions, told the usual jokes. She laughed because they were fine. Not funny, but fine. He asked about her work, then interrupted her answers to talk about his startup. She asked about his favorite films, and he told her what he thought she wanted to hear. She noticed when his eyes flicked to her lips, then to her nails, then to the clock behind her shoulder. Still she smiled. Still she stayed. Not because she was desperate, because she had learned how to give people a fair chance, because she knew how many of them thought they were ready for women like her, and how many proved they weren't. They said goodnight with a side hug. No promise of another date, but no red flags flung too openly. Just an awkward goodbye that hovered between courtesy and relief. She walked away with grace. As always. Later that night, she texted him, "Thank you for tonight. Wishing you a good rest of the week." It was simple, warm, kind. He read it within minutes. She saw the read receipt, and then nothing. A day passed. Then another. Eventually, the thread disappeared. She wasn't blocked on social media. Just her number, just the direct line to her voice. Gone without warning, like a scene cut mid-sentence. She didn't chase. She didn't double text. She didn't ask what changed, but she knew. It wasn't the date. It wasn't her words. It wasn't anything she did wrong. It was what she was. Too dark, too self-possessed, too comfortable in skin that didn't ask for approval. She wasn't soft in the way he wanted softness. She wasn't quiet in the way he thought beauty should be. She stared at the blank screen once, let the silence wash over her. Then she put her phone down, picked up her notebook, and kept writing. Because she knew this wasn't the end of anything. It was just another beginning that someone else wouldn't be part of. And one day, she would no longer be the girl someone ghosted. She would be the face they couldn't escape. The screen stayed quiet. No reply. No typing bubble, just the read receipt, cold and final. She stared at it for a second longer than she wanted to admit, then locked her phone and placed it face down on the dresser. Her room was quiet, filled with the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the faint sound of traffic outside. She sat on the edge of her bed, elbows resting on her knees, not heartbroken, just tired. It wasn't the first time, not even close. She could still remember the boy in high school who told her she was pretty but not the type you bring home. The guy at the college party who called her a queen while reaching for someone else's hand. The dates who made her feel like she had to earn softness, who complimented her confidence but recoiled when it stood its ground. "You're pretty for a black girl." It was always wrapped in a smile, spoken like a gift, as if it was something she should unwrap carefully and say thank you for. Like the way people paused before saying her name, or the way servers handed the check to her date every time. She remembered the hesitation when she wore her hair natural, the way fingers twitched to reach for it, the comments that came disguised as curiosity. She's bold. She's got an energy. She's intimidating. Men admired her ambition until it stood taller than theirs. They praised her drive but didn't know what to do with it once it meant she didn't need them. She had learned to be gentle in her power, quiet in her joy, just to make others feel comfortable. But it never changed the outcome. Tonight was just another version of the same story. Another man who couldn't handle seeing a black woman walk into the room fully formed. Beautiful, whole, not trying to become anything for him. She stood slowly and crossed the room. Her steps were soft on the wood floor as she walked to the mirror by the closet, the one she usually passed without stopping. This time, she didn't pass. She stood in front of it, took in the full picture. Her curls were still perfect. Even after a long night, they framed her face like they were meant to. Her skin glowed, rich and warm, kissed by confidence even if tonight had tried to dim it. Her lips were full, her eyes wide and sharp. She looked like someone who carried stories and stayed soft anyway. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She stared at herself until the silence wrapped around her like armor. Not to prove him wrong, not for the next man or the next rejection. Just for herself. She didn't need to shatter the mirror. She had already stopped shrinking for it. The message came in the middle of a slow afternoon, just as she was folding laundry and trying to ignore the leftover sting from that night. Her friend typed, fast, full of urgency, and too many exclamation marks. Last-minute shoot. Local skincare brand. Real skin, real women. One of their models bailed. Could she step in? She stared at the message for a minute. She had never modeled before, never posed for anything more serious than an Instagram selfie, but the idea didn't scare her. It just felt unfamiliar, like stepping into a version of herself she hadn't fully met yet. She typed back one word, sure. The studio was tucked above a bookstore downtown. No flashy signs, no stylists running around with clipboards, just a warm room with natural light and the gentle smell of essential oils. The photographer greeted her with a soft smile, no judgment in their eyes, just a camera slung over one shoulder and the kind of focus that made her feel seen before the lens even lifted. They didn't fuss over her. No heavy makeup, no pinning or pulling, just a head wrap, a gold-toned blouse, and a little shimmer dabbed across her cheekbones. Her skin stayed hers. Her curls were free. Her posture didn't ask permission. The photographer asked her to stand by the window, then to sit on the floor, then to laugh, then to stop. Look here, don't move, just breathe. She did. Something about the shutter clicking felt like a rhythm she had known in another life. The shoot was over in 30 minutes. She left without fanfare. 2 days later, the photos arrived. She opened the file expecting to see something nice, decent, usable. What she saw made her sit still for a long time. Her skin glowed. Not polished, not airbrushed, just glowing. Like light had chosen her on purpose. Her eyes weren't soft, they were steady, focused. Her mouth wasn't smiling in most of them, but there was something stronger than joy written in the corners. Power, intention. They weren't pretty, they were undeniable. The brand posted 3 shots that Friday. Within hours, people began sharing them. Comments filled with words like radiant and finally, and this is what I needed to see today. Women tagged their sisters and cousins. Makeup artists reposted it. A wellness blogger called her face a revolution. She didn't know how to feel. Not because it wasn't real, but because it was. And no one had ever looked at her that way before without asking her to change first. She didn't rush to respond. She didn't post a thank you. She just sat with the moment. Quiet, still, grounded. Somewhere out there, someone had blocked her, had reduced her to a single date and a filtered preference. Now, her face was everywhere, and this time, they couldn't look away. The first brand reached out with a DM, a small capsule line looking for faces with texture, tone, and presence. She said yes without blinking. The second came by email, bigger, bolder, promising a full editorial spread. The third was an agency already scouting for new faces for Fashion Week. Her inbox filled like water rising fast, and for the first time, she didn't feel the urge to shrink from it. She read every message. She chose carefully. She said yes when it felt right. But she never begged. Runways followed. Not all glitz, some barely paid, but she walked them like they were gold. Her stride was steady, face calm, eyes forward. She didn't perform beauty. She wore it like armor. Some designers leaned in immediately. Others hesitated, still caught in the machine that had always favored sameness. But the audiences noticed. The editors whispered. The flash of cameras began to linger on her a little longer. Her curls became part of the conversation. Not just hair, but a silhouette, a crown. Some stylists tried to tame them, but she refused. She let them stretch, let them rise. Her skin, once overlooked in castings, was now the foundation brands adjusted their lighting for. She walked into studios and saw her tone on their makeup palettes for the first time. She became the reference. They called her look bold, but she knew it wasn't. It was just unedited. One makeup brand flew her out for a feature. They didn't want a smile, they wanted strength. She gave them both. The Billboard dropped 2 weeks later, her face in full color on a corner she used to pass with headphones on, never imagining someone like her would ever belong there. She didn't forget the silence that came before, the castings she was skipped for, the producers who said nothing when her name wasn't on the short list. But she no longer chased them. Now they reached out to her. The same people who once asked if she could tone it down were now re-sharing her stories, calling her timeless, effortless. She didn't buy the praise, but she wore it with grace. What mattered more were the DMs from girls who looked like her, the ones with darker skin and fuller lips, saying thank you. The ones who had never seen themselves in glass campaigns or glossy pages until now. That was the glow they hadn't prepared for. Not fame, not numbers, but the undeniable fact that she was visible. Not trendy, not convenient, unforgettable. She had walked into the world exactly as she was. And now, the world was starting to follow. The sun had just crested over the skyline when he stepped out of the rideshare, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, sunglasses pushed halfway down his nose. It was supposed to be a typical Monday. He had a pitch meeting in 30 minutes, a new client he was trying to impress, and just enough time to grab a protein bar before walking in. His mind was already scanning bullet points, half focused, half distracted. He didn't see it at first. He was walking down the sidewalk, earbuds in, scrolling through unread emails. Then something in the corner of his eye caught him. He looked up and stopped cold. There she was, towering over him on a billboard that stretched across the entire side of a building. Her face, her skin, her eyes. The same girl he once sat across from at a quiet little restaurant, making half-hearted conversation while mentally planning his exit. The same girl he ghosted without a word. Blocked her number before she could follow up, decided she was too much, too bold, too unfiltered, too black. And now she was everywhere. The photo wasn't soft. It wasn't posed to please. Her curls were wild and full. Her lips were bare. Her eyes stared down at the street like they had nothing left to prove. Her brown skin shimmered in the morning light, untouched, unbothered. She didn't smile. She didn't have to. He felt his stomach twist, the heat rising in his face even as the wind cooled his skin. The people around him didn't stop. They passed by like it was just another ad, just another face. But to him, it was everything. A mirror he hadn't asked for, a reminder he hadn't prepared to see. He reached for his phone without thinking, opened the message app, typed in her name, nothing came up. No contact, no thread. He checked Instagram. Gone. Not blocked, just out of reach. He wanted to say something, congratulations, you look amazing, I always knew you were. He stopped himself. There was no version of this that would sound right. No text that would undo the silence he chose. He looked up again. Her image didn't blink, didn't waver. It stayed bold and permanent in the morning sun. The words beside her face were simple. Power looks like this. He stood there for a few more seconds, caught between the past and a version of himself he didn't like very much. Then he turned and kept walking, the billboard still watching as he disappeared into the noise of the city. She didn't need his message. She had already answered. The lights in the studio were warm but gentle, nothing harsh or theatrical. She sat comfortably in the wide cream chair, legs crossed, hands relaxed in her lap. Her suit was tailored black with a sharp neckline, paired with gold hoops that caught the light when she turned her head. Her curls were shaped to perfection, full and effortless, framing a face that had grown familiar to millions. Her expression held no nerves, no need to perform. She had done that part already. Across from her sat the journalist, pages of questions neatly clipped in hand, a glass of water untouched on the table between them. The cameras were rolling, the world was watching. And still, she seemed completely at ease. They asked about the rise, the timeline, the moment the campaign went viral, the decision to say yes to that first last-minute shoot. She answered everything with a calm clarity that didn't try to impress. She spoke like someone who knew her story didn't need exaggeration. It just needed air. Then came the question, a gentle one, dressed in professionalism, but it held a pointed edge. Was there a moment when you knew you had something to prove? She didn't flinch. She could have said his name. She could have traced the arc of her story right back to the night he disappeared, to the text he ignored, to the invisible dismissal that once left her questioning her worth. She could have described his face in detail. The way he smiled across the table like he was doing her a favor. The way he never saw her fully and chose not to try. But she didn't. She just smiled, slow and composed, and said, "There was a moment I realized I didn't need anyone's approval to take up space. That was all." The journalist nodded, sensing more behind the answer, but knowing better than to push. Her voice didn't shake. It carried, not just through the studio, but beyond the screen. Viewers wouldn't need the backstory. They'd fill it in themselves. Everyone had someone who underestimated them, who overlooked them, who tried to shrink them. Her silence around his name was not softness. It was mastery. She spoke next about self-worth, about the importance of seeing yourself before asking others to, about what it means to walk into a room without performing gratitude for being let in. Her words were intentional. Her presence unshakable. She didn't talk about revenge, she talked about vision. By the time the interview ended, the clip had already started circulating. People quoted her in real time, journalists reposted her answers, comment sections filled with gratitude. Little girls saved the video for later. Women of all shades sent it to their group chats with 3 words, "She gets it." And somewhere, maybe across the country, maybe just across town, a man sat with his phone in his hand, seeing her face on every platform he scrolled through. Still no way to reach her. Still nothing he could say that would matter. She had already said everything without ever saying his name. The breeze felt softer than she remembered. The streets looked the same, but something about the rhythm felt slower now. She walked past the row of shops near her old neighborhood, hands in the pockets of a camel coat, sunglasses resting lightly on her nose. Her curls, now longer, fuller, bounced gently as she moved. The city had grown quieter in her memory, but the people were still there, still lined up outside the bakery she used to stop at, still gathered on the steps of the library, trading stories between errands. Then she saw it. The cafe! The same one where she once sat across from someone who had made her feel too much. The glass windows hadn't changed, the little chalkboard sign still leaned by the door, its edges worn. Inside, the tables looked smaller than she remembered. The lights dimmer. The conversations distant. She paused at the window. No bitterness in her eyes, just observation, reflection, a quiet acknowledgement of who she was then and who she is now. She didn't step inside. She didn't need to. She had outgrown the space. The version of herself who once waited for validation inside that cafe was long gone. The girl who had smiled through dismissal, who had typed a thank you text knowing it might go unanswered, the one who had walked home wondering what she had done wrong, measuring her worth against silence. Now, her face echoed across screens in cities bigger than this one. Her skin, once filtered out of campaigns, now led them. Her curls, once asked to be tamed, now danced across beauty billboards without apology. She didn't need a room to confirm she belonged in it. She entered spaces with presence, with peace. A group of teenage girls walked past her on the sidewalk. One of them slowed, nudged her friend, whispered something. The second girl glanced back, eyes wide, then smiled. "Is that?" She started, too shy to finish. She turned, lowered her sunglasses slightly, and smiled back. "It is," she said. The girl beamed, pulling out her phone. "I love your work," she said. "You look like all of us, and you never tone it down." She thanked her, took the picture, then watched them disappear into the noise of the street, still giggling. She stood there for another beat, then kept walking. She didn't shrink. Not for space, not for silence, not for the memory of someone who didn't know what to do with her light. She had kept going, kept shining. And now she moved through the world with the kind of grace that didn't ask for attention but always earned it. This time, she didn't shrink for anyone, and she never would again.